February 16th, welcome back to Edgework. I'm Zack Phillips, joined here on this Friday ahead of one game on the NHL schedule. Just a brilliant job to lead us into the weekend here. One game for us here tonight in the NHL, but joined by so many to help break it down. We'll see what happens if Alex B. Smith hops in here at some point today. He might come, he might not. We don't know, but we'll find out as the show goes on. But so money, how's your morning going this morning?
It's been good. It's been light work this morning, right? Like usually I'm up super early, but um yeah, it's one game. There's no NBA, so it's been a light morning for me. I don't know. I don't really know what to do with myself here.
All right. Well, you know what we can do? We can start off by talking about the Canucks, and then we can get into tonight's game, and
There's
then maybe
always
we
time
can
to
look
talk about.
ahead to the always time to talk about the Canucks. But before we can get into any of that, I want to remind people that today's show, as always, is sponsored by BetStamp. The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is by using multiple sports books and always getting the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like BetStamp to help you do so. BetStamp compares odds across every sports book for games, futures, and player props so that you can save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Make sure to download the app today. It is available on iOS, Android, as well as on the web. If you are looking to sign up for a new sportsbook account, please check out the offers available at betstamp.app/edgework. That's betstamp.app/edgework. It is available in the link. The link is in the description of the show, so make sure to head on over there, or you can just type it in the search bar there and it'll pop up and you can help support us here on the Edgework show. We do appreciate that. But so money, we have a 3-3 day yesterday. We go slightly below even on the day. We'd lose a little bit of money there. Brings our record on the season to 239, 237, and 5. That's 481 bets. We're now at a 6% ROI, still up 29 units on this season. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of what went on yesterday, some of the bets that were made, some of the decisions that were made during the day, some things that went right, some things that went wrong for yesterday's show.
Yeah. So I mean, it was unfortunate with the timing in the morning with the Kings and Devils. We were on the Kings, but then like the price moved too much, and I couldn't recommend it at, at the number that it moved to by the time we got on air. Um, and it moved towards showing value on the Devils, which we also gave out. So that's just an unfortunate timing that happens. Um, happy the Tampa Bay game worked out. That was good. The over we added the over later on in the Pittsburgh Chicago game, and
Right.
that wasn't a good look. And the Canucks game we had the under there. Now it did stay under, but I did have issues with the way that the Canucks played that game. And it's also a little concerning going into the playoffs because that was the kind of win that I don't want the Canucks to get, right? If you're going to play like that at this point of the season, I'd prefer that you lose that game, right? So Demko was great. Detroit looked good. And the Canucks, it they didn't look good, right? The scoreboard 4-1 was very deceiving in my eyes. When I scored the game, it wasn't a 4-1 Canucks win. So stuff like that concerns me. But I mean, at the end of the day, they won the game, right? And they're finding ways to get it done right now. So I just hope it continues in the playoffs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a really tough game that they're playing right now, and I just hope I hope it continues.
Well, let's continue to talk about the Canucks here. There's a question in the chat from Mike Bromberg. Thoughts on Phil Kessel suiting up for the Canucks? Phil the Thrill, I imagine, would be willing to kind of part ways with his Iron Man streak at this point if he's going to be looking to reunite with the Canucks there. Rick Tocchet has had this aura about him that kind of says that he's the Phil Kessel whisperer. It worked out when he was in Pittsburgh. There's obviously a connection to Tocchet and Kessel kind of looking to go there and play with him, with the Canucks. What are your thoughts on Phil the Thrill possibly making his way back to the NHL and suiting up for your Vancouver Canucks?
So I'm a little torn on this, right? Because I do trust this management knows what they're doing, right? So like if they're at
Well, it
this
was
point,
Rutherford and Pittsburgh that brought him in there too, correct?
Yeah, exactly, right. And
Yeah.
like and like Talkit has a previous relationship with him as well, right? So
Yeah.
I trust management. They know what they're doing. And right now they're just in the just checking him out phase, right? So like it's not costing them anything. They've brought him to see how he looks, right? There's nothing happening right now. So like at this point I have no problem with anything, right? But as we move forward, if there is real interest and they feel that he looks good and he's good enough to contribute, I don't see where he's going to slot in, right? So like
Yeah.
you're you you're not going to break up the third line, right? There's an injury on the third line right now, so I mean maybe that's going to work out. I don't know, right? But but you're not going to break up the third line. Is he a top six player at this point in his career, right? He can still pass, right? Obviously, he can still shoot, right? But in that top six, the way that the Canucks play, you need a lot of speed, and he obviously doesn't provide that, right? So I have a tough time envisioning where he's going to fit in with the team. He's not going to be a fourth line guy, right? So unless if he's if unless if you can comfortably slot him into the top six, I don't see anywhere else where he's going to be coming in. But at the same time, this management has shown that they're able to not only revive careers but take players from the bargain bin, right, and really um, re- and really accelerate their growth, right? So
Yeah.
I'm torn. I'm going to defer to people who've shown they know what they're doing. So at this point, I will kind of mute my reservations here and just wait for management to hopefully pull off another one if it does if this signing does come into fruition.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's kind of interesting because it's kind of along the same point as you, where it's like I'm not necessarily sure where he fits in. Maybe if it's just an extra tool to have, then it's kind of nice. Like it's an abundance of riches, and you're like, okay, we have this extra piece who can be a scorer, who can kind of just be around, and if you need it, then it's there. Which that's a nice accessory to have around the team, around the organization. Also, by the way, this is a guy who's won what, three Stanley Cups now. Like you look
Yeah.
at the early parts of his career, the time he goes to Toronto and then he goes to Pittsburgh, racks up two there. Obviously didn't play during the playoffs last year with Vegas, but was a part of that regular season, part of everything that was going on there. So he was around it. He was a part of that team. He does get himself another ring, whether people want to give him credit for having three or not. He does get a third. So he's been around some winning environments. And the other thing that I would say about it that's kind of interesting, and I think is the kind of the point that's being brought up here, or a point that's become obvious, is for a guy who, for a lot of his career, took some flack of like, he's not committed. He doesn't, you could say he doesn't like hockey because of where he's at in terms of his physical conditioning or the lack of interest that kind of seems to radiate from him. To be at this point in your career and be skating with Abbotsford to try to find your way back to the NHL, he clearly loves the game. Like I don't think we could take that away from him.
No, and he's got three. He like you said, he's got three rings, right? And just to clarify, none of those rings are with Toronto, right?
Why did you have to do that?
So no, I just want to make sure, right? So and I mean, it's like one of those things, right? There's there's a reason why he is being brought to be to have a look for a first place team, right? Like there's there's a reason why that's happening, right? And like he took so much criticism throughout his whole career, right? Like regardless of how many hot dogs he eats at Abbotsford, like the thing is that he is being brought in um,
Mhm.
for a first place team, right? Like that. There's you have to give him credit for that, and like there's a relationship there. They like him, and let's just see where it goes.
I'm done complimenting your team. I was giving you guys flowers for what's going on and what's happening with their like that's
Do
enough.
you
Let's get off the Canucks.
do
Go
you
flip some
remember?
cars and stuff.
Do you remember a few weeks ago I told you that I'm going to get you when you least expected, and it's going to come out of
Yeah,
nowhere?
that was. Yes, I do. I do
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
Fair enough. It was good. It was good. It did get me out of nowhere, but it was just unnecessary, man. Why? Why? Uh all right. let's get into the game here tonight. So money, we do have one. We'll give out. We'll break down this game where the price is currently sitting at, and that would be in the Arizona Coyotes Carolina Hurricanes game here tonight. Arizona hosting Carolina. Arizona is currently sitting plus 172. The Canes minus 193. A total of 6. You see some 6.5s out there, but a little bit few and far between. You can find some plus money to the over on those 6.5s. What are your thoughts here, so money, on this game tonight, where this price currently sits at, as it is the only one on the schedule for us here?
So I thought Carolina played Arizona against Minnesota. I thought they played a good game. I thought they were a bit unfortunate to win, and I do see slight improvements in their play, even though um, they are racking up the losses here. But when you look at those improvements in play, they're they're not against teams that are the caliber of Carolina, right? And now you're really stepping up in class against a Carolina team that has been playing well for quite some time now. Even in their loss in Dallas, the 4-2 loss, um, that was a little bit of an unfortunate loss, and Carolina ran into a Dallas team that we've been talking about flying under the radar. They're finding ways to get wins. So Carolina was also unfortunate in their last game, but I I don't think that you look at this game here. I think it's fair. You could make the case that Carolina might be a little bit short, but this is a situation where Carolina has Vegas tomorrow, um, and in Arizona tonight. If they put in the effort to win this game, obviously they'll win, right?
Right.
But if you're going to be betting Carolina, you are you're hoping that that it's going to be a full effort here from the team, and they may not even need a full effort to win this game either, right? So this could be one of those games where they sleepwalk their way to a win, right? So it's just something that I don't want to get involved with, especially with like close to a minus 200 price tag, and you're
Yeah.
making all these you're making all these assumptions going into the game. So because of those assumptions that I don't know how they're going to come out, I will pass on this game.
All right. Well, you talked a little bit there about the sides, and we're looking at kind of the price that we see on that. I know that we don't have a bet in it, but I'm just curious if you could talk us through the total a little bit in this game between these two teams, why it's currently sitting at the 6, and what your thoughts are in terms of why it's priced this way.
So it's sitting at the 6 because Carolina obviously is a very they can be elite defensively, right? They have a large enough defensive ceiling where you can warrant a 6. It doesn't always play out that way because you're kind of it's dependent on which goaltending shows up for them, right?
Yeah.
Lately they've been okay in goal. That's why their chances against have been lower. So that's why we're at the 6. Arizona as well. They do try to tighten it up, and for the last few games they have been, even though the games have been going over. So I think that the 6 is fair. If anything, I'd be inclined to look into a plus money under
Right.
on the 6, but it's not. It's just not there yet for me, right? So I'll pass on the total as well, but the 6 does make sense here in this situation.
Yeah, no problem. We're obviously, as we've said numerous times on this show, whether there's one game, 3 games, 12 games, if we don't have bets, we don't have bets. We're not going to be forcing them here. So, unfortunately, for those of you in the chat, no bets for today for this game. But I'm sure you can understand, given that there's one on the schedule. So you can thank the NHL schedule makers for that and not blame us. Tweet at them, ask them what the hell is going on with this. So money, I have some hypotheticals that I want to ask you, but before I get to those, just quickly kind of taking a look at this weekend, some upcoming games, some teams. I know you're someone that we've talked about a few different times where you kind of get these teams where you're looking at and saying, hey, that's a team I'm going to look to start backing in certain spots, or when we get certain prices on them, or the other way where you're going to say, hey, that's a team I'm looking to fade. Are there any of those coming up here this weekend? Are there any matchups that you're just looking to watch in general? You're excited to be turning on the TV TV. Take us through this weekend and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, so there's a couple of games that piqued my interest here. So and LA Boston. LA is a team that obviously I do want to get behind, but Boston is a team that kind of we kind of thought is going to start struggling a bit, and they have. Problem is, this is an early game for LA, right? It's a 12:30 local start. Um, so there's that element. It's going to be factored into the line. That's why I believe Boston was going to open at like an inflated number. So that's a game that I'm interested in. Obviously, price dependent to see how much of it has like the early start has been incorporated into the line. Florida Tampa Bay is another game that stands out. Florida, we know what Florida is, a league team, great defensively. They their peripheral numbers are off the charts, but at the same time, Tampa Bay is a team that I do want to start betting as well, and we saw that last night where Vasilevsky is back, and this is a team that going forward I want to see where that price is. If the Florida Tampa Bay game is priced how it was or how it would be a couple of weeks ago, because I have an edge on Tampa Bay right now where I think that we are a little bit ahead of the market before the market catches up with Tampa Bay. So I'm interested in that game. Also, obviously the Canucks Jets game, not just because it's the Canucks, but because it's a matchup of two teams that are. Winnipeg has been struggling a bit. The Canucks play has dipped a bit, so I'm interested in where both these teams are headed. So I don't know if I'll have a bet in that game, but mostly from observing both teams and kind of seeing where each of them is headed, and then of course the Carolina Vegas game as well. Let's see how Carolina is tonight. That could be a situation where I may want to get behind Vegas. So yeah, so those are the games that stand out for me tomorrow.
All right.
Oh, and the
Well,
Leafs are probably going to lose to the Ducks here, right? Be
I mean, like,
like minus
yes.
500.
Yeah. What price do you think? Let's actually play the guessing game. Let's see how this goes. Okay. So right now, if you pull this up, we've got Leafs minus wonderful. Leafs minus 303 on this early, very, 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 very early look ahead line. Leafs Anaheim minus 303, Anaheim plus 235. If you had to guess so money, let's assume healthy roster. We have the same lineup that we had last night. Obviously, we're not going to get Morgan Riley back here for the Leafs. Where does this line close? Let's play that game. We're not going to hold you to this. It is what it is. We're playing a guessing game here. But minus 303, where does this line close?
So I think the Leafs will close minus 380.
All right. I'm going to hold on to this clip. We'll see what happens tomorrow, and hopefully it hits within that range, and we'll tweet it out for you. So money minus 380. And all right, but yes, that'll happen. Some housekeeping stuff in the chat here. So money, I got some hypotheticals I want to run through with you. Try to prepare some stuff for those of you who show up every single day to watch this channel, so we appreciate that. But if you're here right now, hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel. Few things. First and foremost, Jeremy brought up, did you see the video of Matt Duchene in downtown Nashville last night? Matt Duchene scored 2 goals in the game last night and went right down the road from Bridgestone Arena into Tootsie's, pulled up and started performing at Tootsie's last night. So
No way.
that's pretty cool. That was a very rock star moment there from Duchene. I've got the I don't know if we can play it because of some audio. I don't want to run the risk of that, but yeah,
Well, I
he
can
went
play
right
it.
down to Tootsie's after, and
Oh,
went
there he is.
right to the bar performing. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. In terms of, we answered Mike's question there about Kessel, and then in terms of everyone else showing up here today, we appreciate that. Percy, thank you for showing up live here. Appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Keep hitting that like button here. So money, I don't think you were a part of it, but I had a game. We called it Fill of the Future. I went to the future looked and saw what happened, saw ahead in the NHL world, and came back and told the guys what was going on, and then they got the opportunity to determine whether it was fact or if I was lying to them. So I've got a couple. I'm gonna ask you them here, or I'm gonna tell you what happened. You can tell me whether or not I'm lying to you. So first and foremost, I went ahead. I went to the awards night, and I saw that Chris Knoblaw won the Jack Adams. Is this fact or am I lying to you?
Why you lie so much? So no, I don't think it's. I don't think that'll happen. There is a path for it to happen, right? And the path would be if the Oilers won the division, right? The problem is that there's just too much ground to make up at this point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they would also have to get rid of Vegas as well, right? So not only do you have to catch the Canucks, you have to get rid of Vegas. I feel that if the Canucks lose this division, it's not because the Oilers caught them; it's because Vegas caught fire, right? And that's the way that I see this division going. You look at you look at the run that the Oilers were on, um, and they still didn't make up any ground on the Canucks, right? Like even now, like they're still too far back, and now we're seeing the Oilers kind of their their play is starting to dip a little bit, which should be expected because for almost every game this season, they've been playing at a very high level, right? So, and it's okay for them to dip a little bit. It's not going to impact how they perform in the playoffs. Like you just can't go through 82 games playing the way that the Oilers have been playing, right? So, and not only with the way that they've been playing, but the results they've been getting as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
so there is going to be the, there is going to be some dip in play there, and that's totally fine. So no, I don't think that's going to happen unless if the Oilers win the division. And even though there are some division futures tickets out there, um, I just don't think it's going to happen.
All right, fair enough. I had to bring that one from the beginning and lie to you a little bit and just test out and see where you were at, see if you could figure it out. But I've got another one. There's been a lot of smoke about some guys being traded where they could be traded to, but I went to past the trade deadline and I saw that Noah Hannafin was still wearing Calgary Flames gear after the trade deadline. Am I lying or is this fact?
Ooh, that can I can see that happening, right? Like the problem is that with a guy like him, like you're not gonna get you're not gonna get fair price right now, right?
Yeah.
And like that's so like you have to decide if you like the return that you're getting, which is going to be a discounted return, if it's worth letting go of that kind of player, right? Obviously, he can help a lot of teams in the league right now, but most of those teams right now are also hamstrung in terms of what they can take on and what they can give Calgary, right? So that is something that I can see not going down.
All right. Another one here for you. Another trade related topic. Jumped past the trade deadline here as well, and I saw this image in my head, and it was Chris Tanev blocking shots, throwing punches, laying people out, and he was wearing a Vancouver Canucks jersey.
Oh,
Is this fact or am I lying?
oh, I don't know if it's fact or fiction, but I mean it's a nice dream. Um, yeah, I, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I don't know if it gets done. There's going to be another trade that the Canucks would need to make beforehand. Probably give up an asset for a first rounder in order for them to flip that to Calgary. For this to work, Calgary knows what they have, um, and but the problem is that if someone was going to give a first round for a first rounder for Tanev, why wasn't it done already? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's no secret what the price tag on him is, and nobody has gotten it done. Right? So that kind of tells me that either Calgary is going to have to come down a bit, or there's going to be some sort of injury for a team that gets super desperate and they're just going to pull the trigger, right? So Calgary also has to worry that um, it's a little unfair to talk about a player like this, but we saw it with Jake Gensel. If the Penguins were going to trade him, you have to worry about the injuries, right? And the way that Tanev plays, um, a block shot, some sort of hit gone wrong, it's all just around the corner for him, right? So and he always plays on that edge. And while we love him for playing on that edge, it also puts him in difficult situations sometimes. So Calgary has to worry about that too, right? I think their price tag is too high. If someone was going to pay it, they would have done it already. But um, there is a love affair between the Canucks and the fans and Tanev himself. He is eventually going to be in Vancouver, probably as a free agent. But if we can get him in earlier for the playoffs, I mean, I really hope you're not lying to me. Like, like you're gonna break my heart if this is a lie.
I know. I I had to bring that one up. Yeah. In terms of the Tanev injury thing, like this is one thing that is just being on top of my mind, especially given who he is, excuse me, and the
Yeah.
history that we've seen out of him. And like twice in about the last week and a half, I've been watching Flames games, and I've seen him go down the tunnel. And I'm sitting there
Yeah.
going like you got to get him out. Like you got to get him out. If you're gonna trade him, you got to get him out because if you're the Flames, obviously you don't want guys injured, but you'd rather that happen with the other team than yours because at some point here that asset's just gonna become immovable, even if they want to move on from
Totally.
it. Like those ones get
Yeah.
scary.
They really got to be careful here. They're playing with fire with Tanev.
Yeah. I have one more for you here. This is a playoff related one. I was looking at the NHL standings when I went ahead. I was trying to figure out, who am I going to be betting on to miss the playoffs? And I was looking at the standings, I was looking at the schedule, and I saw that the New Jersey Devils found themselves back in the playoff picture. They climbed back out of hell, and they have made the playoffs this year. Is this fact or fiction?
Okay, so let's see how much ground they have to make up, right? So they're 6 points behind Detroit right now. Yeah. So when you went to the future, did they address their goaltending?
I can't tell you that.
Okay, so that's what it comes down to the Devils, right? Like they are very good offensively. They drive play. They generate chances. They're very good offensively. This year they've taken a dip on their team defense a bit, and of course we've talked about their goaltending, which is for the most part which for the most part has been at a subpar level. Dawes has been their best option, but and they should be riding with him. But how long are you going to be riding? How long are you going to be able to ride with him? And how long is he going to give you what you need, right? So
Yeah.
unless if they make a trade for like Markstrom or Gibson or somebody like that who can step in and really give them like the above average goaltending that they need to not only to also make up for their dip in defense this year as well, right? Like you don't just need an average goaltender for this team. You need someone who's going to play at an above average level because their defensive numbers aren't great either, right? So at this point, I'll say that you're a liar, because I think there's too much ground, and also you look at that Flyers team too, right? Like I don't think they're going anywhere, right? Like we've like talked about the Flyers. If they were gonna fade, they would have done it already, unless if they make trades at the deadline um that kind of gut their team. And also Detroit is a team as well that maybe the Devils can catch them for the wild card, but Detroit is another team that I think that is on the rise, and that's a team that I would like to be betting on. So unless if you feel like Toronto is missing the playoffs, um, I can't see I can't see the Devils catching up there.
All right, fair enough. And also Toronto missing the playoffs. Who knows? Who knows at this point?
See,
Uh,
but Toronto missing the playoffs would be terrible because if they do miss the playoffs, they're going to be like the ninth place team, right? So
yeah.
like you would rather try to get them into the playoffs and
Oh,
like
for sure.
just see if they catch fire because they should be good enough to maybe catch fire in like a couple of playoff series and like start taking off. They should be, but if they miss the playoffs, like where do you go from there if you're the Leafs, right? Like you're a ninth place
No.
team, like where do you go?
No, I agree with you. And the thing that I look at, like when you're kind of talking about, yeah, they could catch fire. I've been relating it to, and again, I don't want to make it seem like it's like apple to apple. It's not. It's different teams, different constructions. But I look at this situationally, like what Florida did last year. Like
Mhm.
Florida at the trade deadline last year, they made zero moves. Like they did not make one single move. And again, Toronto is not built like Florida. Let's be realistic about that. They're not. They don't have Bobrovsky back there who could go on some world class run and become the Vezina goaltender he once was again in the playoff series in a playoffs series. But my point was just more this: you've got a team that's going to make the playoffs. Like I think they're going to make the playoffs here. You've got a goaltender who's an above average goaltender who has the ability to play at I don't know what the right word is on it, but he can play at an elite level. He's not an elite goaltender, but he can play at an elite level if that makes sense. He can rise to that. So if you've got these guys, plus you've got Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares, Morgan Riley, like those are all guys who can elevate at any given moment and kind of push you over the top from an offensive perspective. They're all pretty good defensively, kind of minus Nylander there, but like you got these guys on the team. You don't need to go all in and sell or buy, excuse me, at the deadline and just rip off assets to go out and acquire players. Maybe this is the year that you just kind of have a quiet trade deadline, walk your way into the playoffs and say, like, you think you're such a good team? Show us. Like,
Yeah.
show us on the ace. Give it to us on the ace. And then I do agree with you, Sony. It's like you could just rip off a series win, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wow, we did it with the guys here in this room. We didn't need eight trade deadline acquisitions to go and try to get us over the top. Like we did it with us here. That's kind
And
of how my viewpoint on this season is right now.
yeah, and like the playoffs, it's a completely different game in the playoffs, right? Like
Yeah.
you can pretty much throw away a lot of things that you saw in the regular season, and I think that um, that kind of where I see a lot of my colleagues struggle at times is they want to apply what they saw in the regular season and the numbers from the regular season into the playoffs, and
Yeah.
I've long been a proponent of you just not necessarily throw it all away that you saw in the regular season, but um, it's all matchup dependent, right? There's like
Yep.
that's why we say that the best team doesn't always win the Stanley Cup. It's the team that got the best matchups that had the better luck, the better short term variance, right? Like these series most of the time, like if they're going 6 or 7 games, there's not much differentiating these teams, right? So it comes down to a lot of luck. And like you look at a team like the Leafs where they've had a lot of losses this year where you can go back and say, yeah, that's a bad luck loss. That's a bad luck loss, right? So like, I mean, why can't they get the short term variance in their favor, right? Like it
Yep.
can, like you see, like you saw the Kings win a Stanley Cup as an eighth place team, right? You saw Florida go to the final as an eighth place team, right? Like these things
Yep.
happen, right? So I think you got to be careful when you're saying that. Well, the Leafs struggled all regular season, and regardless of the matchup, when they get in the playoffs, they're gonna bow out again in the first round, right? So I think those kind of things you got to be careful about.
Yeah, I just think like kind of to your point about how you want to approach things, like you don't want to miss the playoffs here, obviously. But I think the other position that you put yourself in, if you can look at it from a macro perspective of it, is like, hey, we don't have to go all out and
Yeah.
sell first round picks and prospects and stuff to go out and acquire these players because you can be realistic with your evaluation of the team and let's be real here. This is probably, like you said last night when you joined the stream, is this is probably an average team. Like this is probably about a middle of the pack to slightly above average team here who's good, could go on a run, could go on a heater, but you don't have to look at them like they are these top end contending teams where you're going to have to push all your chips in and say, we're willing to get rid of this stuff. And you can kind of be a little bit cautious and aware of how you're going to move forward with this organization without having to just sell a bunch of stuff off. The other thing I would just kind of say quickly on the Leafs topic as well, Insight saying can't buy, no assets to trade, no cap room. I think that this is a little bit of a misconception. Like, first and foremost, in terms of assets to trade, they've got them there. They do have some prospects coming through. Like we've heard a lot about Minton, Cowan, Niemela, some of these guys. There's guys in the Marlies that would be available to put other teams. You've got guys like Nick Robertson who could be trade pieces as well. It's not like these are like the most luxurious pieces to move, but they have them. They have some first round picks. Like they've got some pieces to be able to maneuver. And then the cap room thing to me, so Money, I don't know if you agree, disagree with this. This is more of like an NHL perspective thing than just the Leafs specific. The more I've started to look at this and kind of break down like how this cap functions, the more I think that like the idea of you can't trade guys because the cap is so restrictive is a little bit of a lazy narrative, probably just instilled for people who were like, I couldn't get this deal done or this deal was hard to get done. Well, the cap restricted me. If you want to make a trade, you can find a way to make a trade. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of how I've gotten to it. Maybe that's lazy on my behalf, but like I started to get frustrated with this whole like the cap's so restrictive. It is, but I don't think it's as limiting as people have kind of made it out to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with today you have teams employing people to just look at the cap and like find loopholes and circumvent the cap, like all the capologists that is their job in the front office, right? Like
Yep.
that's all they're being brought in to do. You look at the Canucks, right? Like how creative they've had to get this year with like almost every other trade right now is in the league involves the Canucks. And the Canucks are one of those teams where we had identified them as like very, very restricted with the cap. But they trade pieces away in order to facilitate other trades as well, right? So like they're a very creative team. There are ways to get it done. So unless so and the way that the Canucks cap was left from the previous regime, and they've still been able to maneuver around that. I don't want to hear anybody else talking about the cap, right? Like
100%.
like go back and look at where this Canucks team was left, right? And like before these guys took over. Sometimes it takes a year or two when like you need buyouts and like things that kick in like the cap hit kicks in a couple years after, or like you have to wait until like players fall off the books. But it could take 1 or 2 years, but it's always possible, right? Like and the Canucks have shown that through the side trades that they've been making to like facilitate the real trades that they want to make.
Exactly. Yeah. I just think there's ways to maneuver it. There's ways to do it. If you want to make the trade, you can make a trade. There's ways to figure it out. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But I think that'll do it for today's show. Unfortunately, no bets. There's only one game here tonight, and it's about mediocre game in the NHL. It'll be on the TV for sure, but in terms of actual general interest, it'll be higher because it's the only one to watch, but not necessarily one that I would be really excited on a normal night.
So some life advice, right, from so many
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Go out on a spontaneous date tonight.
I got hockey tonight.
Okay, well, go
No,
play hockey.
that's my date.
Yeah.
Spontaneous. Hey, you know what? So Money, this is back-to-back days you've handed life advice to myself here on the show. So we appreciate that. I'm sure everyone else in the chat appreciates that. This is perfect. This is exactly how it is. Josh C says game tonight is mid AF, as the kids would say. It's mid. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who tuned in here today. We do appreciate the support. If you haven't already, hit that like button on the stream. Subscribe here to the channel. So Money, Thanks for doing this here with me today. Appreciate it. Hopefully, Alex B will be back here on Monday, but nonetheless, so many thanks as always for everyone out there in the chat. Enjoy the games this weekend. Make sure to be following us over on Twitter at EdgeworkHQ so you can see the picks that come out tomorrow morning for the full NHL slate from all the creators across Edgework Monday through Friday. We'll be looking forward to that. But look forward to seeing everyone back here on Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the games this weekend. And as always, good luck on your bets.